you.
Good morning and welcome to the Joseph Apartments Talk Show. We have 4 exciting guests today. We're going to come up with content that will help you as an apartment owner manage your property better, tax advice and other advice utilizing the needs of an apartment owner. So first we have Nick from Utility Reduction Solution, and he is going to talk about this gizmo that you invented, Nick?
No, I didn't quite. I can't take credit for that. But yeah, so this here is a ultraviolet C sterilizing light. It's a germicidal light that we use to sterilize surfaces and rooms. It produces ultraviolet C light, which damages the DNA of viruses and bacteria and mold, and it allows you to in addition to whatever cleaning measures you're doing, you can also use this to clean up and wrap up and really finalize the killing of those viruses that are in the area. So this is a consumer version that's meant for, you just plug it in and let it run. But we also do stuff that's centered around HVAC systems. This is actually installed inside the air handlers, and it sterilizes the air as the air circulates. It also keeps the coils clean. So this also actually saves energy for the on the equipment use. But yeah, that's pretty much what we.
So maybe for apartment owners, a common area like a clubhouse or something, where you
Definitely.
have tenants going in there and sharing. You have it closed down right now, but maybe you could say, hey, we sterilize this 3 times a day or 4 times a day or something.
Absolutely. The key thing though is that you would operate this when no one is there. So because the light is damaging to the eyes and to the skin, people and animals. So this is why this thing comes with several safety features. It has a motion sensor to detect if someone walks into the room accidentally. It also has a timer and then also a remote that can be operated through walls. It's RF.
Now, this could be for a house then, huh? So you have,
Yes.
you have a party, guests coming over, and you want to...
Yeah. For example, as a matter of fact, my father-in-law is having family over the weekend, and we're going to put some of these in the rooms after they leave to help clean up a little bit more after they leave as well.
So you're probably wondering why none of us have masks. Nick came in here earlier and sterilized the whole location here ahead of time. So I appreciate that, Nick.
You're
How do we
welcome.
get a hold of you?
My number is 626-217-2029. The company is Utility Reduction Solutions. The website is utilityreductionsolutions.net. I know it's a mouthful, but URS was already purchased.
How much does something like this cost?
This is actually only $65.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's not an expensive item to have. We do have larger versions, which are more expensive for commercial applications like restaurants and hotels, hospitals, clinics, and things like that. But for the consumer version, it's very easy to. It's very obtainable.
Thank you, Nick. Your phone number again.
626-217-2029. Thank you.
Next, we have a very special guest. It's rare that we have VIPs. Nothing against you guys, but it's very rare that we have a VIP in our midst. Bruce Whitaker, longest serving Fullerton City Councilman, former mayor twice.
Right.
And Bruce, will you tell our apartment owners what's going on with the city of Fullerton? Anything new that you think an apartment owner would be uniquely interested in, aside from this?
Well, I'm a former controller in a retail company, so I'm very locked into matters of the economy. And we have some big issues, obviously, with dominoes that have started falling and will continue to fall for a while. Some of the big issues that we've been dealing with on the council are partly a result of that, where I have 4 pretty progressive members of the council and myself. So they've moved fairly immediately into rent control, looking at rent control, trying to identify new ways to repurpose monies to rent assistance, and pretty much doing what they can to line up a lot of people to come and speak at our council meetings. Our last council meeting went till about 2 in the morning. So we get, that's the method that they like to use, is activism and pretty much maximizing their arguments as city council. In my time on the council, I've been concerned about utilizing existing monies for infrastructure, because they've been deferred for a long time. As a result, our streets are in just terrible shape. A lot of other things too, sidewalks, street lights, a lot of other areas. The only part that's pretty well taken care of right now is our water department, partly because this gang of 4 have driven up water rates pretty extremely. And now they're wanting to put a 1-cent sales tax proposal on this ballot coming up. And that would be a real boon for them, But my problem has always been one of philosophy. In a management sense, you're rewarding the wrong behavior. And there have been many times over the years, even at the millennial change, where revenues were coming in hand over fist. But at that time, none of that, it was a different council. I wasn't on the council then. But they used those for pay increases and perks and pension boosts, and not for pavement. And that's been the problem. The problem has been that nobody else is going to fix your streets or maintain the infrastructure but your city government. But it's a much lower priority for so many other council members. I would love dearly to get a couple more like-minded people on the council and show what can be done by trying to get more mileage out of what we do have without having to resort to new taxes. You know, this economy is not going to be able to bear a lot of new taxes as we're trying to get up off the floor here. So I think it takes a whole new approach, something very different right now in California, because we've been dragged so far to the left side of the ledger.
You mentioned rent control. Are they proposing rent control that is stricter than the state's proposal? Because the state's proposal covers the whole state unless it's more.
Right. Yeah, we have two activists who are both very partisan, very kind of Democrat Central Committee members on the council who are constantly pushing these more extreme efforts. They cheer on Governor Newsom and other areas, County of LA, City of LA, and they want to one-up them.
Did that pass? Did the more stringent?
It hasn't yet. Right. What happened last council meeting was CDBG grant funds were pretty much wholly dedicated now to rent support. And in a way, I don't have such a big argument. And in some ways, landlords are helped by having tenants not, all of a sudden nothing comes forward and then they're out on the street. We do have a big homeless issue as so much as Southern California does as well. So we don't want to see that kind of ballooning right now either. So these are unusual times, and so even such as the first stimulus payment that came out from the federal government, normally that's something I'd get on my soapbox and say, don't do this, don't have your great-grandchildren, assume this debt. But since so many people were wounded by actions of the government in this case, including the lockdown, even I'm having to compromise a little bit. I'm pretty much a purist usually when it comes to those economic matters.
Well, I got to tell you, I for one am shocked that we have conservative politics on this TV show. If you want to support Bruce and his view of private property and free enterprise and conservative values, how do they get a hold of you? Is there a campaign website or not?
There's brucewhitaker.com. It's being updated right now, though, because I'll be launching the campaign here in Rio for this one within a matter of weeks. But I like to give out my phone number. I always believe that as a local elected official, I want to be reachable. I want people. It makes no sense to me to hide behind anything else. So my cell phone number, 714-981-8474. And I can receive texts on that as well as just phone calls, which I receive all the time. So sometimes to the detriment of my long-suffering wife, I do deal with calls at all hours. And,
a lot of time we like to complain about how everything's going to pot, but it's our fault. We don't put people like Bruce in, and once they get in, we don't support them. So if you want to do something good for private property, free enterprise, and conservative values, get a hold of Bruce at 714-981-8474.
Correct.
Don't call during dinner.
Dinner just jumps all over the place, so call when you
Linda
need
said
to.
don't call during dinner. So
I may not answer right away, but I'll get right back to you.
Thank you, Bruce. I
Sure.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you, James.
And our next guest is Lou Reynolds, and Lou is going to give us an update on his world of how to sell and avoid taxation and increase your cash flow.
All that good stuff. It all ties in together, though. We're all kind of all on one, we're at one table, I guess, literally and figuratively. I am Lou Reynolds. I'm with Direct 1031. Thank you, Jim, for having us. We appreciate the partnership with you and everybody else. It's been amazing for us, and most importantly, amazing for clients. And I really wanted to touch on two things today for the next 3 or 4 hours. And I was just seeing if you're paying attention, Jim. But the two things I want to touch on, and one is just a little bit of a description of what we do, is we work with clients that have apartments. Usually those individuals or families have had apartments for 20, 30 years. They've had a great run. They have a great apartment complex. They've done a very successful job, but now they're 70, 75 years old and they're wondering what the next step is. And for us, it's really 3 items that we bring to that table. The first thing we want to do is eliminate all the taxation if possible when they sell that property, because that's the biggest golden cage, if you will, that holds them into that property. So if we can literally get rid of all the taxation, it's a great advantage to them. Second thing we want to do is we want to increase, and amazingly, sometimes we can even get to a double with somebody's net income. And then the third thing we want to do is we want to get rid of as many of those management headaches as possible. And so the goal is really to allow an individual or a family to really retire from running their real estate and hopefully put them in a much better position with much more flexibility than they would have had before. And potentially what some of that means, or oftentimes what that means, is literally moving out of California. Because that's the second thing I wanted to talk about, is that not a week goes by that I don't get some alert from some legislative issue that's going on either locally within a city like Fullerton, or that's going on statewide. And the stuff that's going on statewide right now is stuff that I've just finally dubbed "one flew over the cuckoo's nest," because it just, just when you thought it it can't get any crazier, it gets, one step crazier. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we were dealing with a new bill in the California Assembly that would have given rent relief, meaning no rent for the next 12 months, or they were going to reduce it down by 25%. And then what just came out this week on Tuesday is a new bill that's actually already been heard 3 times in the state Senate, and it's a bill that would give individual renters in California 4 years of rent relief. 4 years of no rent, and then they have 10 years to pay it back after that. And by the way, they don't pay that rent back to the individual owner of the apartment. They actually pay it to the state, and then the state, in their generosity, gives you a tax credit for that. Whoa. That's what's being proposed right now, is 4 years of rent relief and then paid back 15 years later, not even to you as an individual. And so, whether this passes or not, I have no idea, but there's not a week that goes by that we don't see something that's punishing somebody who's owned an apartment for 30 years, literally worked hard. They're still, when I see a 75-year-old walk in, most of those guys are in jeans and a t-shirt, because they're still every single day down at their apartment working hard. So Jim, that's what we're doing, is just trying to help those families out of those issues.
Lou has mistaken this for our Halloween edition, and thanks for scaring us to death. Actually, Lou and his team put together an analysis for one of my clients, and we literally came close to doubling their income, selling their property in California, doubling their income, and the whole thing was tax-free. It's on paper, an analysis. If you want a copy of that, we'll cross out the names, but you can move your money from California to, in this case, North Carolina and Georgia.
Yeah, right now, North Carolina and Georgia, and also Texas too.
Moving the money into 3 different states, doubling your income, tax-free, and how do we get a hold of you, Lou?
How you get a hold of me? And Jim, I'm glad you mentioned the one thing too. There's 2 quick things I would mention there. One is that, to me, one of the best things that an owner can do is just to get the facts. And what you mentioned is something that we call internally PTTO, which stands for Property, Tax, Trust, and Opportunity Analysis. And it just lets an apartment owner know what they have, what their taxes look like, and then what the opportunities look like if they made some changes. We run those free for folks just because we find them to be such an effective tool for individuals. Best way to get in touch with us, call Jim, call us directly, 760-822-2720. Again, 760-822-2720, and we're happy to help any way we can.
So if you want to sell your building, move the money out of state, and run the numbers, you can get a hold of me or Lou, and we'll do that for you. Lastly, but not least, Zeus's father, Mr. Dean. Dean,
Yes,
you want to talk about Zeus or the credit correcting world?
Oh, well, the credit is pretty important right now. Good morning. I'm Dean with Pacific West Credit. We're a licensed credit repair company. There's a lot going on in the credit world, as everybody knows. First of all, property owners, there's the tenants that are trying to, forbear their rent. But if your mortgage company, because it's not free and clear, you can forbear your payments on property. You have to call up the bank, but that will really mess up the refinancing. So in the lending world, what's going on is the secondary market's really nervous, all right? And seconds, you do an 80% first and a 10% second with 10% down. That's a typical transaction. The seconds are raising their FICO limit from like 640 to 680 or 750. Synergy just did that. So credit is extremely important. I would say, everybody, if you can't make a car payment on your car, so your tenants don't get a 30-day late, which affects them on their credit worthiness, just call up the bank. I did it just so I can know what I'm talking about. I have 2 cars with the credit union, Nordstrom's, and in March I called them up and I said, hey, I got this notice to forbear my payments. And I said, okay, that's fine.